And here we are at the Tavern Talk. We made it.
Woo.
We're here with bartender Bob.
I still love it.
Yeah, he's been hooking us up tonight with some good brudacious brewskis.
Some brudacious brewski.
I guess we'll hop right into it then, huh?
Yeah, let's go. You wanted to talk about the AWC being hard to follow as our first topic.
Yeah, it is, especially early on. It's because they don't air like the whole tournament. A lot of the tournament happens off the air, the qualifiers and things like that. I kind of understand that they can't show it all, as nobody is probably going to watch some of the games, right? But there's buys, and like, where did these teams come from? And should I be a fan of these dudes or not? Are they all just a bunch of randos? And then the organization of it, where when do we actually come together to see who is the Arena World Cup champion? And it turns out all these guys compete for points over these tournaments, right? And the top 4 teams from each side, with the points at the end, will do this big tournament. And then that's when you get to see, you know, if Liquid or Echo is better, for example, right? So it's confusing. I think it would be easier to follow if they had literally Raider.io does all their stats and bracketing. So I think if they actually took it upon themselves to make a comprehensive website for things like stats or how long each fight lasted, or to turn it into like an actual serious sport you could look up, like on ESPN for hockey, for example, right? It could be easier to understand and easier to watch if they made better avenues of enjoying it, or if part of this off season there was, you know, to where you're not just finding a streamer that was on one of these teams and then you just watch him. I think there should be a bit better scorekeeping, because now we have regular multi-cups per season. You know, they play for relatively often against each other, and you can start to get stats and get attached to players and things like that, but there's no like real comprehensive measurements or increments, or like, how can I tell this guy actually makes his matches last 7 or 8 minutes, or every time that this guy's match goes over 6 minutes, he's probably going to win it because he's really mana conservative or whatever.
Yeah. Well, then you got to start to see how people are playing it too, not just, you know, the average, well, Radar.io is going to put this event on and here we go.
Right, and like if I could actually list stats by like who played mages and what mage spec did they do and what stats did they have, how are they playing it, for example. So like if you play Arcane Mage, for example, the average match length is 3 minutes, and if they're playing Frost Mage, the average match length is 9 minutes. I could see, you know, on a professional level, kind of what that means from these mage players.
Right.
And we got to remember, we don't compare these to our own numbers. These guys are, you know, freaks of nature. They're absolutely insane at this game. It would just be cool to have stats comparable to like other pros, you know?
No, that'd be awesome. I'd love to see that.
It would make better organizations, and not only would it be like coaching in the game would be able to grow and build the stats, you'd be able to actually have consistent teams with good training systems and et cetera, right?
Right.
And it could become an actual sport. But I'm dreaming, so
Put the crack pipe down.
I know, the pipe dream for real, but it would be cool to if they really stepped forward and made like an AWC website with a lot of stats and a lot of ways to look up people, and like you know, like the MLB has a combined merch store, for example, so you can buy whatever team stuff, even like these small teams that don't have the power or the organizational ability like Liquid and Echo do to just have t-shirts on the store if they do well.
Yeah, or even like the capital to just get the shirts bought too at such quantities.
Right. And Blizzard can just sell official, you know, Blizzard AWC versions of these shirts or whatever. It'd be cool.
It'd be awesome. I'd love to see that.
And it would be like, if I was a big fan of Welcome to the Jungle, for example, or Welcome to the Jung, because they took down Liquid, I could buy their shirt, you know, off their website or something. And boom, team makes money. They're able to, etc. So I think that this could be fleshed out more. I mean, we saw what they did to StarCraft 2, so I don't expect a whole lot. They have a regular couple of times a year, that, you know, 8 to 10 times a year, everybody gets together and does these World Cups. So you have a certain amount of ability to make this a regular like thing, you know, like something, a sport like people actually watch and invest in, and know that this guy's really good because I saw him here, and all kinds of stuff like that. So we'll move on. I went on a bit of a tangent there, didn't I?
Oh, you're good. Hey, man, it's Tavern Talk. It's what we're here for.
So we did want to talk about our delve strategy a little bit, Nick. You want to start us off on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, you know, last week we talked about delves and their loot, and we didn't get any, like, no hate comments or anything like that, but it sparked up some stuff. So we wanted to talk about, like, we actually do enjoy delves. We were not saying we didn't like them. First off, we do them
we
often.
think they're sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just want to talk about our delve strategy, which I don't know, Jordan. Do you wanna take it and I can follow up with it?
Yeah, the biggest thing is utilizing, because you have 4 of those coffer keys maximum per week that you can get from doing world events. You get these coffer keys. So I guess let's break down what a coffer key is.
Well, I mean, even like before the coffer key, because you can get what are those? The thing you get 100 of them, and
the fragments.
Yeah,
we'll get to those. But right now, the baseline is 4 actual coffer keys a week.
Right.
You can get. And so what a coffer key does is when you get to an end of a delve, a bountiful delve specifically, it has to be marked on your map as bountiful. If you get to an end of a bountiful delve, you get an opportunity to open a 3rd chest that has a guaranteed piece of loot for the whatever tier delve corresponds to the item level. But a pretty good way to get gear, especially early on, is getting to a tier 8 delve and then using your coffer keys on 8s or higher for gear from the delve. You get these coffer keys from doing things like world quests, awakening the machine. You get them from doing the radiant echoes if you get enough points. Well, actually, no, you get the fragments, which we'll get to. But you get the fragments from doing the radiant echo, whatever it is throughout the world. You get coffer keys for doing the theater trope and the world events. So you get them for doing essentially any sort of like world activity. You can get a coffer key from the world boss, for example. So from doing anything that's actually in the world, world quest, world events, things like that. You want to make sure you're trying to get to 4 of these a week. But additionally, you can do things like the awakening machine, or you get these key fragments from the end of delves, for example. And for this is immune to your weekly limit, but you can get these key fragments additionally, and you can turn them into extra coffer keys.
Yeah, and then you keep running the bountiful delves is what you want to do them with.
And so what we were talking about last week, when we brought up that we thought that delves might be a little bit too easy for gearing, it wasn't that we don't like this concept.
No, we do them quite a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, we just don't think... we don't necessarily know. It kind of takes away from how powerful mythic dungeons should be right now, for example. Because I would say doing a mythic key like a 2, 3, 4, or 5 in some cases will be much harder than doing it like a tier 8 delve, especially if you come with a friend, for example, in the delve. And so it feels a little bit silly to grind out, me and Nick being dungeon and raid guys, us to grind out a bunch of dungeons when actually it would be easier and faster to just get rid of our coffer keys and do the delves, which is actually pretty cool. If you get a group of 4 or 5 of you together, it turns into like a dungeon. It's actually pretty cool. It turns into a dungeon where everybody gets guaranteed loot in it, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, which is great. I think that's a fantastic part, because I don't know how many times I get annoyed of like kicking a mythic's butt and then just getting gold at the end. I'm like, really? Like, this is great. Now rack and stack another one.
So yeah, so our biggest strategy is if you are a character that needs to get to like an LFR tier level, for example, quickly, I would say delves are a great move.
Oh yeah, delves are a fantastic move to get gearing easy.
And they pretty much, with the vault, it doesn't really get bad to do them until you're like 605 or 606. Well, and you still want to get your 4 to get the 616 out of the vault, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, you can do 4 delves every week. You get a 616 on at the end of the week.
Yeah, you get 2 different shots at a 616, which is
good. I mean,
I would say that's probably, if new players really wanted a bare minimum, I would say do the LFR as soon as you can. You want to make sure you use your 4 coffer keys and do the world quests associated to get your pieces here and there. There is you can buy your way out of crafting with some stuff, because with the crafting order system, you can turn your spark into something pretty good. Yeah. Especially if you tip well. It's not too bad. It's like 5-10K, I would say, out the door to probably do most. Yeah. Neck
still a fat chunk, though.
Still some cash. There is... And then, of course, Mythic Zeros are still pretty good because they're on a daily lockout now. So you can do every Mythic Zero once a day. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's an entry. Once you start getting up to the 580, 585, 590, then I would say keys start becoming a better way to go. And then normal raid, for example, you should probably be trickling in by that point.
You could still go do a bountiful delve, and as long as you do it, I think it's like what tier... I've picked up 603 items from like a tier 9.
Right. You still want to make sure you're going through those coffer keys and getting the guaranteed pieces to clean stuff up.
I think
it also gets you a lot of rep and resonance crystals and other valuable things that
which you're going to want to pick up.
Oh, the crests as well.
Yeah, you're going to want to make sure you get the crests, because you get those at the end of the delves, too.
And you get Valor Stones, yep. So all kinds of stuff that'll help you progress your gear and level it up. I would say for leveling up gear, you want to make sure you're paying attention to what tier of it is. For example, like if it's a champion or a hero or a veteran, you want to make sure you are upgrading stuff you're going to plan to be holding on to for a little bit, because it feels awful silly to burn 700 Valor Stones and a bunch of crests and then go loot an item that's the next tier higher at the next dungeon or something.
That becomes a pain in the ass, because then it feels like, well, I just wasted all this stuff on a piece of gear and now it's already gone. But also it's fun if you do it and then you don't get the key or the rings that you need to upgrade and get out of 580 item level for like 2 weeks in a row. Thanks, Blizzard.
Yeah. And they give us the vault, so there's some... They're giving some back, but yeah, there's still no true bad luck protection.
No, it's part of the game. It's fun. It's fine. It's why I keep doing them. But no, delves at the end of the day, they're fantastic and a great way to gear, easy way to gear as well. And you're going to get a 616 just by doing 4 of them at least once a week. But Jordan, I think it's time to move on to the next topic, the MDI, and why you are scared and excited.
We'll start with good news. We'll start with the good news. I am really excited, because it's interesting to watch kind of what comps they use, and there was a couple little subtle changes and subtle little group changes in the last MDI. I'm excited to see if there's going to be more variation in the groups this time around, considering they've given it so much time for the balancing and things like that. I'm excited to see what pathways and what kind of crazy pulls they end up stringing together, and what they do with like warlock portals and rescuing people and all the goofy skips they're going to do. It's going to be super cool to watch. And then they hold on to strategies sometimes until the end, so that nobody knows their strategy through the dungeon, and it's really, really cool. I'm actually pretty excited for that. What I'm not excited for is for the rushing of people that think, watch this MDI, are like, well, that's the path. You pull all the way until this. You pull all the way until this trash pull. And it's like, guys, no, we're not running a specific comp to make sure we can interrupt that exactly often enough to make sure everybody's perfect.
Yeah.
And no, that's not the path. Like, that's what I'm not excited for. Every time when the MDI comes around, they're like, well, I thought Liquid do this path and this pull tank, pull harder. And then everybody wipes, and then the DPS leaves because you look stupid. And it's like, guys, come on.
Week too. That goes exactly back to last week when we were talking about the toxicity in Mythics and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Not everybody who plays this game, A, wants to do Mythics, or B, 99% of them are not as good as people who are, in Liquid and doing this stuff in MDI. Like,
literally 99.99% of people. Like, literally.
It is the top 1%. You can try playing like that all you want, and that's fine. If that's the way you want to do it, more power to you. But don't be a dick. Like, that's what it boils down to.
Right, and the truth of it is, if you want to have a group that is that organized and that is going to play that hard, it's not going to be a pug group. I'm going to be honest with you.
Oh, 100%.
Now, this does get better as you get higher, because generally speaking, they know the dungeons better and the mechanics better as you get higher.
You weed out people that don't, like you said, don't know it as well or don't play as well either.
And so as you get higher, this will get better, but that does not mean that everybody's going to be perfectly cohesive the entire time, as if you were in a Discord call or something. For example, calling out interrupts or dispels or I can do the cleanse or etc. Just, I want to cover on that a little bit, but don't let that take away from, I absolutely love watching the MDI and watching the goofy crap that, I know I can't ever pull that off. It's just funny, it's like when I watch hockey, for example, I know I couldn't actually skate that fast.
Oh, shit,
right?
I can barely skate.
Right. And so it's kind of like that. I have an appreciation for it because I know how hard it is and how I'll never be able to do that.
Well,
so
it's fun to watch the pros do what they're really, really good at. Like, that's what makes it entertaining. Yeah. It's just, it's great.
The last thing I was going to talk about in this was...
what you got? Your solo shuffle, it looks like.
Yes, I didn't really talk about my experience in the solo shuffle last week. Because last week they had one of the quests for the weekly PvP was pretty easy. Play 12 rounds of solo shuffle, which that means 2 whole games. So for those who don't know, a solo shuffle is a PvP queued event. It is a 3v3 arena where you can only queue alone. So it's only solo. It gets you on a team with 1 healer and 2 DPS and etc. on the other side. And you essentially you play 6 rounds and you rotate every team combination. So you play once with each set of 2 people is ultimately how it works out. You play with everybody at some point and everybody on every team. And so the truth, it's very humbling. I got into it because, I can lose 12 rounds of solo shuffle. That's okay. It's not that bad. 2 games. I can deal with that. I ended up going in, and I 3-3'd the first one, and I 1-5'd the second one. I was playing on my mage. I only had 5 honor pieces, and I don't have any gladiator pieces yet. So I imagine this will get a little bit better once I get some gear. But I honestly, to be honest with you, I had a lot of fun. I didn't have anybody talk any mad crap. Nobody was calling anybody out or heels. People were just saying, focus this guy, or they're doing the Arena 1, 2, 3 postings, for example, about priority, talking, and I even got a tip once, or not a tip necessarily, but a call out where a guy said, after I do the kidney shot, I want you to polymorph the healer. And I was like, all right, cool, I can do that. Good call out. So I actually had a pretty good time with it. It was hard though. Being a mage without enough versatility to not get stepped on like a bug is pretty tough. Because there were a couple of times where the rogue, and it was a rogue and a warrior, where the rogue and the warrior were on the same team, and they like looked at each other and then like looked at me, and then they just killed me, right? Because they're like, well, we just played, they each had played with me on their team now.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, I mean, the mage hurts, but he's probably hurts the most, but he's really squishy, so let's just erase him real quick. And they did.
Oh, yeah.
So.
God, that's like, you've drugged me into PvP so many times, and it's so fun to do it with you because it's been I've enjoyed it every time. And normally I hate PvP, but man, I still love that one time that it was you and I think it was 3v3s, and we came up against 2 other rep paladins, and we smoked the hell out of them.
That was with Brother Savage.
Yeah, that was great.
The Chipotle. Yeah, I wonder what he's been up to. I'll have to bug him.
Oh, yeah.
So it was pretty fun. I do think that was actually a really great quest. That weekly PvP quest compared to like the skirmish one.
Yeah.
It took me like a half hour with queue times, like a half hour to 45 minutes to complete. While the PvP skirmish one, I had to do like 85 skirmishes, and it took me like 4.5 hours.
Would you say you enjoyed it just because of the time reduction it took, or did you enjoy it because of the quality of content?
Well, I came for the weekly quest, and I stayed. Oh my God, you child.
Oh, shit, sorry. I know a meme that's going up there.
So I came for the weekly quest, and I stayed because there was a couple of cool interactions. It was actually pretty cool. Little
the social content.
Engage,
so
yeah.
So the content made you like it a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
the
good.
Players too, so it was fun.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Nobody was.
I mean,
you didn't have the guy who's like, "This mage sucks," or on the evoker,
yeah.
I would get this where this healer sucks, and then melee. Well, rogues are famous for this. The rogue just AFKs. He's like, I'm not gonna play this round because this healer sucks. He didn't save me last time. It's like, bitch, you line of sighted me, and I'm an evoker.
I hate that.
It's like now I have to rescue this guy and yank him melee DK or something away, so that way I can get in line of sight with you. It's like, you dumb bitch. So, and then he AFKs the next round. It's like, whatever, you motherfucker.
It's that Bravo 6 going dark.
Right. Don't let the door hit your tail on the way out. Actually, so I guess we're not all the way. Let's travel back to Delves a little bit. There is something we actually wanted to touch on here.
Yeah.
So, Nick, as players continue to complete Delves, do you think they will become obsolete, or will they continue to make sure they are relevant?
I think that with this being a new added endgame content for players, that they're going to have to continue making it relevant. So we'll see season over season the gearing and everything become better. Or not better, but you're going to get that next eye level upgrade up, maybe up to a point to where then you're forced into mythics, or just overall. Because like we were saying, you can pick up a 616 by doing 4 delves a week. Yeah, it takes you a while to get geared, but you're still getting damn good gear at the end of the week. Plus, if you're doing it at the top end, at least like 600 plus eye level on top of it. So I think that they're going to keep pushing it and getting them to be relevant and stay relevant. What do you think, Jordan?
I think they're going to keep them relevant. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to go about doing it, there's a couple of ways. I think the easiest way, and what I would expect them to do with it, is they're going to just add more tiers on top.
Right.
So, like, now you know how you can only go up to 12, which is essentially, like, Mythic Delve. Like, it's ridiculous. Pretty hard. So I imagine with another, like, gear, they're either going to fix the scaling a little bit. But once we get another tier for Season 2, for example, once we get the next tier unlocked, now we're going to have gear to be able to do the 11, the 12, for example. So then they might add a 13, 14, and 15, maybe, to the top of it.
Do you think that that's required to add the next couple levels to it, or do they just adjust the gearing for the current level system?
What I do think and what I hope they're going to do is they're going to continue to allow these delves to drop relevant gear.
Right.
I'm not sure about the pathway because that is the two ways, right? They either scale it up to the next tier and then they have the kind of culture shock where, oh my gosh, I used to be able to do tier 8s, but now a tier 8 is way harder. Or they can do just add more tiers. I think the less abrasive one is add more tiers. It's going to be a little ridiculous by the end of like Season 4, for example, when we're in tier 4 of this. Then we're going to be doing like level 21 delves or something, right? There is definitely a point to be made against it.
Yeah.
What I hope and what I don't think they're going to do, but what I hope they don't do is they're going to drop these delves and they're going to come up with like a couple of new ones. And then only these new ones will be the delves that drop the right gear.
Oh, yeah.
For example.
Well, okay, so that brings a whole other question. Do you think they're going to continue at, like, going from what they currently have is all the delves and then rotating the bountiful delves? Do you think they'll actually add new delves too on top of it?
I think they should, and I think they should keep the old ones relevant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're saying the best way forward is going to be to add more tiers in order to deal with, say, Season 2 gear, but then add in 1 or 2 or 3 more delves, maybe like 1 per area kind of thing.
And I feel like the only real argument against this is doing delves the entire expansion all the time that will get a little stale potentially.
Yes.
Is there aren't like rotating weekly affixes or seasonal delve changes, for example. And I do think the bountiful delve, rotating which ones are bountiful and things like that is a very good move.
It is. It forces you into a different one pretty much for end game or for end gear content. But
and eventually you're going to do them all, right?
Right. But I think too with you may go into a one delve then know the layout of it, but then they change what's happening in that delve too.
They could.
To help with it not being as, boring, because then you're like, I don't like, waterworks. I hate this delve because I have to do XYZ or something like that. Like, I get it. It's just like earlier in our news segment, I absolutely hate the mists of whatever.
Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah,
we can just call them mists from now on.
Don't like it. I'd rather do Grim Patrol.
Yeah, that's a hot take. All right, so I guess this might actually be the title of the episode.
I'd rather do Grim Patrol.
No, well, maybe. That could be one. But I think this might be the hot take for the episode. Should they add affixes to delves to increase the amount of loot you get or potentially keep them fresh every week?
That's a good, I like that. Well, so here's the thing too. Do you add in the mythic ones or do you come up with like delve specific ones? Because I feel like we're starting to see a group of people that were forced into mythics and raids that are now having a different avenue and are really liking delves because it's not into, a 4 or 5 man group where you have to hit eye levels, you have to hit this stuff. It's just, hey, let's go do this delve. It's a more casual look at play at the end game content. You're still getting the same rough level of gear.
Right, and there's a lot less like anxiety and stress to it because there's no timer, for example. Exactly. You're not playing with a specifically group of 5.
Dude, do you know how many times I have to remind myself in a delve that like I don't have a timer. It's okay for me to take 5 minutes or 3 minutes and let my bubble come back before my next big engagement.
Yep, it's okay to sit down, get your food buff.
So not used to that.
Yep, let's relax. You're in a delve. Chill. Just some good old-fashioned classic murder. Well, I think that wraps it up. That's all we wanted to cover today in Tavern Talk, right?
Yeah, no, we're good. It's been a great time.
Yes. Thank you, Bartender Bob, for the delicious drinks today.
I still love that they just have
Bartender Bob. We'll have to get like a bartender for our studio, allegedly, that we're working on. We'll have to get a Bartender Bob picture, maybe.
I mean, if
just
we get
print it out and stick it on the wall, a piece of paper.
We'll do a full bar and we'll just stick him out like just an 8x11 piece of paper on the wall.
Yeah, with a
or just
piece
stick
of,
it on
with
a
like
pole
pink
so
duct
it's
tape.
right behind the barb. Yeah.
All right. We done though. We calling it for this week.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for joining us. And Nick, would you send us out?
Definitely. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the Valley of Spirits. We're your hosts, Jordan and Nick, your go-to Horde players. Join us in Donegal on the Mal'Ganis server and look up our guild, the Electric Boogaloo, for some epic adventures. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or X as it is known these days, by searching the Valley of Spirits podcast. Don't miss out on an episode, and follow us on Spotify or anywhere you find podcasts. Check out our YouTube for additional content not found on our podcast platform. Until next time, may your quest be glorious and your loot be plentiful, and maybe a ring drop would be great. Thank you, Blizzard. And as always, for the Horde.
Paladins suck.